One morning a long time ago, the world slowly stirred awake as every living creature and plant prepared itself for a glorious day. The cocks crowed as dawn approached, the crickets quieted down, and humans gradually rose from their slumber. In other words, it was business as usual, or so it seemed. The crack of dawn offered the first sign that something was amiss. It was the brightest dawn that anyone had ever seen. Instead of partial darkness, the early morning light was as bright as mid-morning. By mid-morning, all creatures, plant and animal, stared in awe at the sight before their eyes. Instead of one, 10 suns floated in the sky above their heads. No one had ever imagined that there existed 10 suns, let alone the fact that they could all rise at the same time. By noon, their amazement quickly turned into agony as the air burned with the temperature of 10 suns. Plants withered, birds fell from the air, animals collapsed from thirst, and people couldn't prevent their skin from searing and cracking. Unbeknownst to everyone, childish mischief was behind the unfolding disaster. But let's take it back to the beginning. You see, the god of the east, Dijun, had married the goddess of the sun, Shi. They lived on the far eastern side of the world, just at the edge of the great eastern ocean. The couple bore 10 children, each of them a fiery, energetic son. These sons lived in a giant fusang tree near the sea, where they would often frolic and bathe. As they grew up, their mother established a routine. Each morning before dawn, the goddess would arrive in a golden chariot. One at a time, the sons took turns riding with their mother across the sky, lighting the world with their brilliance and warming every being. Maintaining the same course every day, evening would always find them in the western abyss, with the sun having grown weary and its light fading away. The goddess would then return it to the fusang tree to rest before arriving the next morning to pick another one up. In this way, life on Earth thrived, until one fateful night. The sons began grumbling among themselves about how they'd never spent an entire day playing together without at least one being absent. In the careless fashion of children, they vowed to rebel against their mother and break free from their fate. And so before the goddess arrived the next morning, all 10 of them leapt into the skies at once. Dancing joyfully over the earth, they couldn't help but marvel at their radiance, and they swore nothing would ever separate them again. In their folly and ignorance, never did they stop to think about the consequences. The world below was immediately thrown into chaos. With the combined power of the 10 powerful orbs, crops began to wilt, rivers began to dry up, and children wailed with pain from sunburns. The people prayed for rain to drive away the suns, but none appeared. Not even the great sorceress Nu Chao could help, for her spells only echoed into a bottomless void. Soon enough, food grew scarce, and great hungry beasts and monsters began emerging from the wilderness and making easy meals of humans. The people called upon all the gods they could think of, and eventually resorted to cursing them when it was clear no help was arriving. All the while, Emperor Yao was in distress given the unfolding calamity. He summoned Dijun, and demanded the god command his sons to cease their folly. However, the god himself claimed to be powerless, as both he and the goddess had desperately tried to plead with their sons who would hear none of it. Eventually, a compromise was reached that one of Emperor Yao's officials in the heavens, known as Yi, would descend to Earth and do whatever he must to stop the catastrophe. Yi himself was not a powerful god, nor one of impressive stature. However, he was well famed for archery skills, for he could shoot down a sparrow in full flight from over 50 miles away. As Yi left heaven, Dijun handed him a new red bow and a quiver of white arrows, but with strict instructions. While he was to do what he must, Dijun asked him not to hurt the sons more than was necessary, but not to spare the wicked beasts devouring mankind. And so Yi departed heaven, taking with him his wife, Chang'e. The couple was received by Emperor Yao with much joy. Wasting no time, he organized a tour of the land for them, but even in all of his godly wisdom, nothing could have prepared Yi for the devastation brought on the world by Dijun's rebellious sons. Corpses met them everywhere they went, half-eaten bodies consumed by ferocious beasts, starving people aimlessly wandering across a scorched, cracked earth. Yi's heart was gradually consumed with anger until he could no longer contain himself. In his fury, he forgot Dijun's directive to act leniently with his sons. This was no time for negotiations or persuasion. It was time for action, time for war. With this, Yi quickly ascended the highest mountain, took one arrow from his quiver, and lined up his shot. True to his superior marksmanship, the arrow hit one of the sons straight in the center, splitting into 1,000 sparks. The sun fell off the sky in a spiral where upon impact it transformed into a strange three-legged raven. With 9 sons to go, Yi fixed the next arrow in his bow, and one by one, each son came tumbling down to earth. But when the emperor saw that only 2 sons remained in the sky, and Yi was already aiming for one, he wisely remembered that at least one sun should survive to brighten up and warm the earth. And so he crept up behind the archer and stole the last of his white arrows from his quiver, and thus saving the last one. The sons had been effectively dealt with, and it was now time to handle the monsters. For this, he fashioned a fresh supply of arrows. And what terrible beasts he had to face! These included the 9-headed monster, Ju Yiung, whom he strangled with his bare hands, and the dreadful vulture Dafeng, whose wingspan was so enormous that a typhoon would form from the flap of its wings. Facing his rival, Yi clearly understood arrows would do nothing but wound the bird. And so he fastened a long black cord to the shaft of one arrow and shot it square into the vulture's chest. Using all his might, he dragged the bird down to the ground, repeatedly stabbing it in its chest until all life was drained from it. Behold, the people's hero. All in a day's work, Yi had restored the balance of nature. Numerous banquets and feasts were thrown in his honor with the emperor in attendance. Emperor Yao even went so far as promising Yi a splendid palace overlooking Jade Mountain if he only chose to remain on Earth. But Yi's and Chang'e's hearts were set on heaven, where they felt they rightfully belonged. With that, the couple returned to heaven, where they hoped to be greeted in glory at Yi's great triumph. But if Yi hoped to receive a reception similar to that from the Earthlings, he was sorely mistaken. When he informed Dijun of his exploits, Dijun's heart turned cold. After all, Yi had murdered all but one of his sons. He immediately banished the couple from heaven, took away their godly status, and cursed them to live and die as mortals. All of the couple's pleas fell on deaf ears, and they eventually resigned to their fate. Chang'e was implacable. More than Yi himself, she reveled in the pleasures and privileges of the gods and despised mortals. A grudge formed in her heart as she cursed the day she'd taken Yi as her husband. Now here she was, being unduly punished for Yi's stupidity, she thought to herself, as her spite for Yi grew. Back on Earth, Yi went above and beyond to placate his wife's desires. Every day was spent trudging through forests in search of Chang'e's luxurious demands of tender deer meat and exotic wild fruits, but all in vain, as Chang'e would often fling them away, claiming to lack appetite for the unsophisticated food of mortals. Finally, she handed Yi an ultimatum. If he was to keep her, he needed to venture west to the mountain of Kunlum, the abode of Queen Mother of the West, who possessed the elixir of immortality. This magic substance was said to bestow immortality to anyone who took it. Of course, Yi yearned with all his might to restore harmony in his household, and readily accepted the dangerous mission. The path to the queen's residence was encircled by fire mountains and a deep moat filled with boiling water which no mortal had ever crossed. Even worse, the queen herself was rumored to be a fierce being with the teeth of a tiger, the scaly body of a serpent, and the tail of a leopard. However, as luck would have it, Yi was able to reach the mountain of Kunlun safely and receive a compassionate ear from the queen. Taking great pity in the couple's tribulations, the queen handed Yi enough potion for two, but with a warning. If shared between two, they would both achieve eternal life. But if only one person consumed it all, that person would enjoy the immortality of the gods. The journey home felt like a walk in the park, for a great burden had been lifted from Yi's shoulders. Finally, his wife would quit her nagging and enjoy life on Earth. But lo and behold, for as soon as he told his wife of the instructions he'd been given, a scheme began to form in her mind. She reminded herself how she had done nothing wrong, and thus didn't deserve to lose her godly status. Eternal life on Earth wasn't enough. She needed to be in heaven, where she belonged, and so she sent Yi away to find some special meat to celebrate their achievement before chugging the entire potion. The effect was almost immediate. Gradually, she grew lighter and began ascending so high into the sky that the earth below now resembled a tiny egg. Suddenly, she was gripped with fear of being alone in the bottomless void of space. An even more terrifying thought crept into her mind as she started contemplating if the gods would even welcome her given her deception. Realizing she'd made the wrong choice, she opted to stay on the moon for a while until the gods forgot her indiscretion. But little did she know that she'd thus sealed her fate. Once she resolved that enough time had passed and tried to ascend again, she discovered she'd lost her powers. Worse, a strange metamorphosis took over with her, back arching, her chest separating, and her skin drying up with small swellings all over. This was her reward. Chang'e, the once beautiful maiden, had been turned into a giant toad, condemned to live in solitude for eternity on the cold moon. If you have enjoyed this video, make sure to smash the like button and subscribe for more content. It helps this channel reach more audience, which in return helps us create more videos for you guys. Don't forget to share and leave a comment too. Until next time, take care.